Welcome to the Trades Podcast, a podcast about the business of home improvement and promoting the trades to young adults.
Yes, right here, everybody. This is the Trades Podcast. I am Danny.
And I'm Jeff.
And this is the Trades Podcast, Trades Podcast again, where we're here to promote, one, the trades, learn more about it, interview, and just have wonderful guests that will, one, excel and promote the trades to young adults, business owners, or anyone, parents that's interested into the trades. But we got a special guest here today, right, Jeff?
Absolutely. I'm really excited to hear about Brian and what he's got going right now.
Yeah, so check it out, everybody. We got Brian Huff in the building. Brian, how you feeling?
I'm feeling great, guys. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this. Is my favorite subject.
As we can tell, even before the recording, we felt the energy. But you're with Midwest Technical Institute and Delta Technical College, right?
Yeah, that's right. I'm the CEO and owner of those. We actually started off 30 years ago as Midwest School of Welding and Fabricating. So I'm a welder by trade and CEO as well.
That's amazing. And break that down. All those years, give a little bit more background of the business of the Technical Institute and the college, and just, what really drove you to get to this point where you're at right now.
Yeah, sure. I actually, when I got out of high school, just like probably most of us here, I had no idea what I wanted to do. Decided I'd go to college and try and figure it out. That lasted 3 semesters. I tell people it was the best 3 semesters of my life. When I look back, it was the only 3 semesters of my life. But I'm home in the summer, and a friend of ours, his dad was a foreman at a local shop, and he got us jobs there just for some spending money. And I go in there, and they tell me that one of the welders had quit. And they're like, "We want you to try it. We're going to work with you. We're going to train you. Let's see how this goes." And, it started growing on me. I started catching on to it and kept up with it. And I actually liked having a little extra money in my pocket. So I didn't go back to college. And I did that kind of welding for about 1.5 years. And then I learned pipe welding. And pipe welding became my career. And along the way, through all that, the opportunity came to teach welding. And then that's how the school was born. Like, as I said, we used to be called Midwest School of Welding and Fabricating. That was 30 years ago in 1995 when we opened up. But that's kind of how it got started. When I say the opportunity came to teach welding, the opportunity was there because the opportunity for welders to get hired was so great. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the pipe welding world. Maybe, some of your listeners are, maybe some of them aren't, but the pipe welding world is it's new construction and maintenance, say powerhouse maintenance, power plants, refineries, steel mills, paper mills, chemical plants, every kind of chemical plant, grain milling operations, big agribusinesses that process food. I actually worked at Archer Daniels Midland. Maybe you've heard of Cargill or ConAgra or Monsanto, but all these places, if you've never been in them, are nothing but tanks and pumps and pipe and systems and vessels. You go in there, it just looks like spaghetti. And they rely heavily on the construction trades and specifically on welders. The iron workers have welders, the millwrights have welders, the electricians have welders, and of course the pipe fitters had the pipe welders. And we were always hiring welders. Always. And you could barely walk around out there without seeing a crew who wasn't practicing welding. So we were always training welders. So I kind of, at a very young age, get jettisoned into this whole world where I just see this tremendous need for welders. And that's what gave birth to the motivation of the school and how we got into this. And, really in 30 years, that need hasn't changed. That's been consistent over all this time. I remember when we first started the school, the area we were in, people would say, "Well, what are you going to do when all the welding jobs get filled?" And that never happened. In 30 years, that's never happened. And matter of fact, we've seen the gap get wider, and that's what we're here to talk about today quite a bit. But I mean, it's amazing, just how that need is so strong even today.
Yeah.
Yes.
I learned something just recently about welding, Brian, and I've had a buddy that was a welder, pipe welder, at the shipbuilding industry down here in San Diego called NASCO.
Yeah.
Um, so NASCO is one of the few shipbuilders left in America. We outsource a lot of it. And with this change in the global economy, let's just call it, that shift is going to change just in the shipbuilding industry. The amount of welders it's going to take to change from doing under 100 ships a year to, hopefully up to 1,000 ships a year to change our competitiveness with the world economy. That is huge amount of welders that I don't think people are really accounting for coming up in the future.
No, they're not, and I'm glad you brought that up. They're called Blue Forge Alliance, and they work with maritime contractors that you're mentioning, that do submarine building, shipbuilding. They said they need 140,000 skilled workers. And and to your point, if you've ever been on a shipyard, a lot of those are welders, but they need
Yeah.
every craft. That's one industry,
Yep.
just one industry to just, and it has nothing to do with the infrastructure or energy or healthcare or all the other, of course, the AI arms race, all the things we're going to need. That one industry needs 140,000 skilled workers.
Have that one industry, and then you think about all the tariffs that are happening right now to bring back home
Right.
industries, building the plants. Some of these plants are so big that they're just planning on making their own power plant to power the new plant that's being built.
Yeah.
So
No, it's,
huge
it's, in,
amount of
it's,
opportunity for welders.
tremendous opportunity. And the American Welding Society says there's 300,000 openings just through 2029, 300,000 in welding. Uh, like we said, that need hasn't changed. The need just gets greater. And really overall through, I mean, there's all kinds of stats, but a really good hard and fast one that's easy for everybody to remember is for every 5 that retire, 2 are replacing them. And so they're seeing the cliff get closer and closer and closer. It's called Learning Blade. It's a STEM platform, and they do a lot of research in these areas. And they say if we don't fix this, there's going to be 2.1 million skilled trades jobs that go unfilled in the next 10 years. So, and these are all the kind of jobs you're talking about at the shipyard. And, and look at another big one besides welders is electricians.
Absolutely.
AI, I don't know if you heard, or go ahead. I don't mean to cut you off there. Go ahead.
No, I'm just agreeing with you.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And the Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock, he was just at the Ideas Festival out in Aspen, Colorado. And he said we need 500,000 electricians. And it's not because BlackRock's going to hire any electricians, but all this new technology and innovation and these services that they want to invest in, that they know are coming in this new age of innovation, they know they got to have the skilled trades to build it. And they know it's going to require a lot of electricians. President Trump's AI and crypto czar said we have to double the electrical output in America to lead the way in AI. Double it. Yeah, so I mean that's why you're hearing now they're recommissioning nuke plants. They're going to start building nuke plants. They got to build natural gas plants. They're going to have to go back to building coal plants. Wind and solar is like shooting a freight train with a BB gun. It's not going to. They're going to have to get serious about this to double the electrical output. And then you add in digital currency. Both of those platforms take a tremendous amount of electricity. And so, it's coming. I don't know if, the public is probably basically unaware of it, but it's coming, and it's going to be, they're talking about it being a golden age for the trades because of all the skilled trades work we're going to need in this country.
Yeah, and you made a great point where you're speaking about big companies and their big investments, government. And that's not even talking about on the lower level of, just your basic homeowner needing help around the house. And that's where you have a lot of different areas of where the trades can kind of lead you into. And here at the Trades Podcast, we kind of talked about it where we're not opposed to the union side of work, but we definitely do emphasize a lot of the people that we do have are your smaller companies, your single op, or even some that are even up to about 400 or 500 employees. Um, it, it, that gap is just so tremendous. I mean, of just needing all those workers and welders, electricians, and how do we how does that puzzle just come back together? How do you find that puzzle?
Well, I mean, I look at it two ways. From the educator standpoint, like I look at it on the micro level and the macro level. In the micro level, as educators, and I'm talking just as it relates to the delivery of education and what we can do, right? I always say job placement is king. So if the programs that students are getting out of, if they're getting placed in a job in their related field, doing what they were trained to do, and if that's happening on a widespread level, that kind of news travels fast. To me, there's no greater evangelism tool than somebody getting a job. When they go out and they tell their friends and they tell their parents and their teachers and their guidance counselors, all of a sudden there's this new awareness and there's this interest in the trades. So as educators, everything we got to do has got to lead to that, where there's got to be an employer-focused curriculum. We hire people from the field that actually are faculty and require them to have so many years field experience before they can teach. And then we have program advisory committees where we bring employers in and they evaluate our programs. And uh, let's say if it's a new program, they'll either give it the thumbs up or they'll shoot holes in it. But we all got to come to an agreement before we go down the road with this thing. But
Hmm.
saying all that to say this, it's a very employer focused mission. Because the end result is we want them to get a job. We want them to go to work in their related field. And I really believe as basic as that sounds, if everybody's really doing that well, from the education standpoint, that's a really good way to get interest in the trades and drive people in that direction.
Yeah,
On the
and that
macro,
yeah.
go ahead.
No, I
On
was just gonna say that's what I just love about, that you and your team at Midwest Technical Institute. That's exactly what you're providing. You're kind of connecting that dot between the employee to say you have someone that's interested, and you may not have those resources to fully train, or even time is a huge thing. Like you said, we were just talking with someone the other day where it's like when you're in the beginning of a business, you're on the phone doing your work and you're answering the customer in front of you's question that they have. So you have so many things going on. So that's kind of where I see that key piece come in with Midwest Technical Institute for employers and for anybody that knowing like where do I start? And this is definitely a great start, I imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can speak to it from experience. When we first started the school, we didn't have financial aid. We didn't get that for 4.5, 5 years. So there was no way. And by financial aid, I mean the student loans, the Parent Plus loans, the Pell Grants, and all the kind of aid available to anybody who could go to an accredited institution. We just started, we didn't have that. So, but what happened is the local employment agencies around us heard we were ex-welders, we were training welders, and we were putting them to work basically where we used to work at and places like that. And they started sending us people. And that's where we learned right away that, man, the news travels fast. There's a lot of people who say they do that, but ultimately they're not really, the students kind of on their own when they leave. They're kind of, here, we'll help you with some resume preparation. We'll do these kinds of things. But I feel if the institution is really working hard to get them a job and giving them several options and really helping in that area, again, that kind of news travels fast. We had 5 students in our very first class 35 years ago, right? Since then, we've
Wow.
graduated over 35,000 graduates. And I attribute all of it to job placement. I attribute we took that same mission and expanded it through healthcare, through trucking, through different mechanical trades programs, through cosmetology. We have the same attitude that we want you to get a job when you're done, and we really that's the end result. And we believe that's, again, as educators on the micro level, we believe that's the way to be the most successful.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
35,000.
35,000. We graduated 35,000, over 35,000. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's across how many campuses, locations that you have?
We have 6 campuses in Illinois, Missouri, and Mississippi. And, yeah, we just I kind of mentioned it there, but we do welding, HVAC, electrical. We also have healthcare programs, medical assisting, medical coding, dental assisting, phlebotomy. Again, just your boilerplate where they're gonna go get a job when they're done. The cosmetology, of course, we all know what that is, and then truck driving. Truck driving is an endless stream of employment opportunities. They never find enough drivers.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a trucker, of course, and that world was kind of new to me. I was blown away when we got into it, just how many employers there were, how big they were, and how many often they're hiring drivers. If you're if you don't have a medical condition prohibiting you from doing that job, there's nobody should be out of work. Because these guys are lined up saying, well, we got plenty of work for them. Whatever it is, there's plenty of work for them to do in trucking.
Absolutely. So, a question for you on trucking, Brian. Um, with autonomous technology, like Tesla's got their cars going, and a few other companies are doing the same thing. Do you see that impacting the trucking industry in the near future?
Not the near future. Could it develop to a level where people are very safe with it, and maybe there's a massive overhaul done in the infrastructure to where these things have their own lanes and stuff like that. I mean, I guess that could happen, but I don't believe it's still going to happen in the near future. But I know they keep making more and more advancements with that. But there's just so many decisions that driver's got to make, and try going down into downtown Boston. Try driving a semi in downtown St. Louis. It's like this is rough stuff. So, but again, I still see them needing somebody. But I mean, that's a great question, Jeff. And I think if the proper infrastructure was there, all that utility was laid down, maybe you could have a system that was totally automated like that. But it would be a heavy lift.
Yeah, I see that as a long ways away. I've traveled
Yes.
across country several times, and the semis are part of what's happening. And yeah, for what 60, 70,000 ton vehicle or pounds, those things are dangerous.
Very, yeah.
Yeah, and how is AI going to handle a flat tire or the brakes locked because the air got shut off? That's split decision reactions that are based on experience and training. AI is a long ways away from that.
And no, I 100% agree. And we don't see it. Even like medical coding. You would think, okay, they'd be on the chopping block, but there's a lot of decisions they have to make, and AI is going to be a tremendous tool in their hands. And I think that industry is very excited about that. But you're going to have a lot of decision making that will still be done by the person. But yeah, it's exciting. There's a lot of opportunities. Trucking is another one. This is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They say we need 240,000 truckers just to keep up with the ones retiring. That's not any growth. That's not, all kinds of infrastructure jobs, this is just just keeping up with the retire. There's 240,000 openings for truckers. Anybody who wants to get into that will have work for the rest of their life.
Yeah, and then some, and then having created a a family business, and it can be a generational piece, and that's what we've come to find out of our small piece of the world of talking to a lot of business owners across the world, really, of just kind of like the market of labor and where it's needed, and it's almost been the same exact answer on all spectrums of we need just workers to replace the people that are leaving, just at a bare minimum.
Right. Yeah, and you got that stat I mentioned at the beginning. For every five that retire, 2 are replacing them. It's incredible. What the gap, again, they call it the skills gap. The skills gap got quite a bit of airtime like 10 years ago. I don't think anybody even used that term until maybe 10 or 12 years ago, but it didn't improve. Yeah, like, I'm trying to think which one it was. Maybe it was Learning it was could have been the Learning Blade platform, but they're still continuing. They're saying not only did it not get any better, but it's urgent now. Like the folks that were the think tanks, those economic think tanks 10 years ago, they were looking at the age of the skilled trades population going, "Wow, what's gonna happen when these guys retire?" Well, now we're there. We're really
Hmm.
getting there, and it's gone beyond, just a gap to where it's getting to this place of urgency, and that's why I believe on the macro level in the K through 12 education system, there's gotta be a wholesale change from the way we've been doing it.
Yeah, yeah, and even on the labor part of it right now, anybody that's even already hired, having a job, has a job. I love your slogan. It's all over your website. It's on your screen right there. Trade up.
Yeah.
Um, can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, I really, it's super catchy, but I want people to really understand what that means.
Yeah, and it all came from this very discussion we're having. We like to say trade up because 1, it highlights the trades, and 2, it presents the trades as an upward move. Because for far too long in the K through 12 public education system, the trades weren't presented as an upward move. They were presented as a downward move. Right, and college was the goal. All roads led to college. That was what everybody was to aspire to, and if you didn't have the academic ability or the learning style, or even the interest, well, then maybe you should try this over here, right? And so it was always presented as this second-tier option, and, despite the good intentions that gave birth to that philosophy 40 or 50 years ago. Now we see the consequences of elevating one career path over another career path, right? When in the whole scheme of things, every career path is important, right? Every career path has value. Every career path is a complement to each other in this thing we call the American economy, and especially the trades. The trades are an upward move. They are rewarding. They are viable. They do pay well. They are essential, right? So the trades are certainly an upward move, and we want to we want to speak to that in our in our logo, and really just what our whole mission is because we believe it ought to be the reverse in the K through 12. Instead of maybe you should, it ought to be a you could. Like, wow, you could be a machinist. My goodness. I mean, all the products and parts and machinery and the tooling that goes into that and all the way you're gonna affect your local economy and the world and everything else, you can do that. You're so good with your hands, you're so mechanically inclined, you're so bright, you got all this kinda aptitude, you could actually be a machinist, right? I mean, just flip the whole thing on its ear and quit acting like maybe you should and turn it into a you could, and that's what you could become. So they aspire to that from the 8th grade on. They're already going, "Hey, I'm going to be a welder. I'm going to be an electrician." Um, that the Germans do a great job of this. There's one thing we could probably. I actually call it an Eisenhower moment. That we need an Eisenhower moment in this country, and they both, ironically, have to do with Germany because Eisenhower, when he came back from World War II, he was totally blown away by the German Autobahn and said, "We're going to do that." Right. And then when he got elected president, they did it. I mean, it's this monumental coast to coast, border to border endeavor. All that concrete, all that manpower, all that engineering. Our entire interstate system was built from the 1950s to the mid 60s. Everything you see, I mean, every now and then there's a new expressway. Every now and then there's a new overpass. Every now and then there's a new ramp, right? But we're basically riding on everything that was built from the 1950s and 60s, and it changed America. He connected all those businesses, all these peoples, all these industries, and America went from being a military superpower to being the world's economic superpower. It just completely blew up everything here and proliferated business. I'm sorry, can't get that word out on a scale that we can't even imagine. And it was all because of that bold initiative that they just grabbed the bull by the horns and said, "We're doing this." And they did it. You know, why I call it an Eisenhower moment. It has to do with Germany. We need something like the Germans. The Germans have something called the VET system, vocational education and training system. And after what they call secondary school is completed, get this, 1/3 of all those graduates go in that VET system. So when they're in what we call the 9th and 10th grade, they're still doing general education courses, but then the rest of the day they're learning trades. And when they turn age 16, they go to work with the employer, or as they say, in the company. And and then they stay in the company until they graduate high school. And when they graduate, they go on to an advanced trade school, or they work at another company, or they stay in that company. 51% of Germany's entire workforce, not 51% of just the skilled trades, but their whole workforce comes out of that VET program. So it's like a farm system for workers, and it all begins right after 8th grade.
Wow.
America needs, just like they were blown away by the Audubon in the late 1950s, early 50s, we need something like this, and put our values on it, our culture, and we kind of make it our own. But we have to have something like that and completely abandon that college is everything. I'm not knocking. Look, there's things we got to go to college for. I totally get that. But you can't tell everybody to go there when, and the statistics are dismal in this area. That's why I believe Gen Z is really looking at that college proposition and waking up to it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. No, the waking up to it piece, I think you said it earlier, where, even just the number of Gen Z and just the 15% versus the 20% of going into the trades and versus not, the drop in college application. It's only that tells you numbers don't lie. It's just exactly what's happening, and hopefully it is waking up towards that mission of moving that education piece of, I just love it the way you said, just turn it around, on the verbiage, because it's not your uncle's plumber's crack coming in to fix a house anymore. You have some really sophisticated, professional, really business driven individuals that are tackling this on. And I mean, that's what your institute's doing, that's what your college is doing. um where do you end up finding your educators? Are they already business owners? Are they retired? Where does that come into piece? How can someone know that they're getting the best education from you guys?
Well, it's all of the above. They come from the field. We require them to have a minimum of 3 years work experience in the trade they're going to teach. Now, our teaching assistants or lab assistants, they can have less, but anybody who's responsible for they're evaluating their progress or how the education is going to be delivered, especially the hands-on competencies, we want that person to have a minimum of 3 years work experience. So that's where we draw from. Who better to deliver a employer-focused curriculum than somebody who was an employee, right? So that just makes sense to us, and that's how we do that. But yeah, and really, look, we just try to stay relevant through placing students in jobs. We're getting feedback all the time, but we like to formally have these companies actually come into the school once a year. We'll feed them lunch or dinner, but then they can take a hard look at the curriculum. They can see the lab. They can see the way we're doing our competencies. They can see the equipment that we have, and it just gets them bought more in on it. But again, throughout the year, even when we're placing students, we're going to get feedback. But I believe, we look at it like the employer is the end user. Now, of course, we want our students to have a great experience, but what we found out is if we please the employer, the student's going to be happy. So that's what we really want to go for, and do the best we can. You can't. We understand we can't make it perfect for the employers, but we try and do everything we can to where that student is ready to gain entry level employment in their chosen field when they leave us.
Yeah, and I imagine that transfers over to the different locations that you have, because there'll be some different needs within those different regions.
Absolutely. We've got schools where primarily they're leaving as pipe welders. We have some schools where they're leaving more as structural welders. We got some schools where it's more refrigeration and HVAC oriented. We got some where it's more, of course, the northern schools where the heat's the focus. but yeah, it's absolutely, and there's even different things, even in cosmetology in different regions. But yeah, but that's the nice thing about being a trade school like ours is we can be nimble enough that we can just work with the employers, and we're not just pigeonholed into a certain orthodoxy of curriculum. Like this is the way we've always done it. This is the way we do it. This is how it's done, and we never get out of that. We can make changes pretty rapidly.
Again, Brian, do you mix in soft skills with education?
Yes, we do, especially in the healthcare programs. Uh, I don't know. I've never seen the soft skills work too good on the welders. It's- but 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 you know what I'm saying. But the healthcare programs absolutely. And look at Jeff. As long as we've been doing this, that becomes more needed. We find ourselves having to focus more on that, and that's also it can depend on the region of the school as well. But we've got to really focus on that because a lot, whether it's the phones or the way, Gen Z more or less, and I don't want to say because I don't want to generalize, but let's just say overall, maybe the way they interact with folks, looking somebody in the eye, communicating with them. And I think that's kind of gotten lost a little bit because of the isolation on the phone. And that's a whole other topic. But we find ourselves really having to work on the soft skills more and more as we go on.
Yeah, I think that's an example of our public school system.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of things,
Yeah,
you know,
Yeah,
but
there's a huge
technology.
combination on that, and even just coming from some, your millennial 32-year-old over here, where it's almost been like right in between that piece of technology and not needing technology, but if you have a job, you're most likely going to be using that technology, so you got to be well equipped with it. So it's kind of like that teeter-tottering moment right now, I think, too, for a lot of the new generations that are coming out into the workforce, that they know technology is going to be used, but how useful can it be used, especially with the scare of AI, softwares, and just the way that companies are kind of investing in different areas. So that's why I think it's a great message, specifically right here, right now, kind of what you said earlier, that this is our moment in timestamp to create our own Eisenhower moment of bringing everything together.
no, thanks for saying, and I like what you said earlier, Danny, about, we're not even talking about the building trades in home construction. Everything we're talking about is, so if you put all that out there, the opportunity is so amazing. And we got to have those folks. I know you guys are probably familiar with Mike Rowe. And, of course, he's a great advocate for the trades, great spokesperson for the trades. But he makes a little quip where he says, if you're a big fan of electricity and indoor plumbing and paved roads, you might want to pay attention to this because we got to have these folks. They're foundational to the society, and really nothing shined a brighter light on it than COVID did. First time in my life I was ever told I was essential was during COVID. It's like, we all know how important the trades are, but look at what I mean when COVID came out. Oh my goodness, everybody else is shuttered. They're in their home with the masks on, but you guys, no, 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 no. You go, you'll be okay. Just put a mask on. We got to have you. You're essential. So if you're an electrician, you're a welder, you're a plumber, you're an HVAC tech, whatever. You guys, you'll be okay. So we were told right then that the society cannot get along without us. You know, I always like to make this point to people. Everything starts with the trades. And if you look at it, there's no new industry, there's no technology, there's no service, there's none of those things until somebody builds it. Right? So the doctors, the nurses, the medical professionals, they can't deliver life-saving healthcare until somebody builds the medical facility or builds the hospital. There's no education in this country delivered until somebody builds the school. Right? There's no airplanes, there's no cars, there's no tractors, there's no farm equipment or heavy earth moving equipment, right? Until somebody builds the plant where they're going to make those things. There's no weaponry. There's no military web. There's not until somebody builds the factory where those things are going to be produced. And there's no homes. There's no, you just go on to everything starts with construction. Without construction, we're just all out in the field. We're living in the woods. We're living in tents, right? I mean, so you start looking at this thing we call the American life, our way of life. The trades are at the foundation of it. And I mean, there's not an iPhone until there's a factory to build the iPhones. There's not, so you start stripping it down. Everything starts with the skilled trades. And so they're always going to be around, and they're going to be so crucially needed in this new age of innovation that we're about to blow into. And I agree. I can't remember who said it was going to be the golden age, but I agree with that. I think we're about to see we're going to get jettisoned into this golden age of the trades. It's going to be just a great opportunity for anybody who wants to get into them.
Absolutely. Yeah, even if you're pro college, nothing's going to happen at college unless there's somebody there to turn on the lights, fix the plumbing, open the gates.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people, Jeff, walk in, they flip the light switch on, or like they don't even know where that came from.
Yeah.
We just all take it for granted. Or you turn your phone on, or you do whatever. You just forget how it even came into being. A period. But when it goes away, you sure wake up real quick, and that's when we find out how essential they are. And I feel like the trades will be the last to go. That you're going to have those folks, and it's going to be great opportunity for anybody who wants to get into it. And I tell, like we have a weld competition, or there's different times, where I mention that because that's where I can speak to parents as a group. But whether it's one-on-one or whether it's as a group or any setting like that, I always tell them, hey, here's my big advice to you. Impress on your child to be a good worker. Right. And I know that sounds super basic, but 30 or 40 years ago, the big differentiator between people in the workforce was really their ability, because everybody was basically a good worker. Everybody you could depend. There wasn't a lot of competition between being a good worker. They were reliable, they were punctual, they came to work. Well, now employers are desperate just to find somebody who's reliable, who's going to come to work, who's going to stay, come early, stay late. And we tell the people at our school, look, get this trade and determine within yourself you're going to be a good worker, and you're going to own it. You'll be a foreman, and by the time you're 23, 25 years old, you could be a general foreman. You could be a job superintendent. The chance for advancement is going to be great, because the work, I don't want to necessarily just say it's the work ethic, but maybe it's just the way they're taught about work has been so diminished that, nobody really even thinks about what a good worker is. But the companies sure know. The companies are starving for them. And so, but that's one thing we can actually control. And again, I know that sounds very basic, but I would encourage all your listeners, if they're thinking about getting in the trades, first to do it, but second to determine within themselves they're going to be a good worker. And if that's the case, they're never going to be without work.
Absolutely. And to take that a step farther, Brian, in my opinion, is if you're a good worker, you've set the foundation to be a good leader.
Yes.
A good manager, a good supervisor, down the list. And then you combine that with technology that's out there right now, where it used to take you 5, 6, 7 years to be able to learn how to manage a home remodel, as an example. Now you can do it in 2 years or less because of technology.
Right. No, there's no doubt.
So, and I'm sure that applies to a lot of other industries.
Yes, absolutely. No, there's the opportunities there, and uh, whether, and we know, we get students from all kinds of backgrounds. You guys know the world we're living in. All right. It's so, I was fortunate. I had a dad at home, right, that worked, that took me around with him all the time. And my friends essentially were in the same kind of situation, so it really wasn't, it was just kind of the world we lived in. So I can easily take that for granted and just say, well, why can't everybody, but not everybody does have, they haven't been exposed to that. They don't even know what it means. They don't know they need to get up by 6 a.m. They have to be, that's what they're going to do the rest of their life because they haven't even had anybody model that out in front of them. And
Yeah.
so, it's really, for us, we've got to kind of do a complete retooling, and we just kind of start that messaging as soon as they come to school. We usually tell them we say the days of sleep, the days of not being at work by 7 are over. And here's and we got a cup that's on the shelf. You're going to have to pass this test when you get out of here. And it's unfortunately, the drug, the marijuana use and the drug I hate to, but that's a big deal. And people that are in the mechanical trades drug test for those things. And so a lot of folks that think, well, that's kind of harmless. Well, it's going to be a big deal to you if you want to get in the trades. And so, you've got to clean that up out of your life. And then you've got to determine that, hey, I'm going to be getting up early and this is what it's going to be the rest of my life. And that's really what they're getting into. But if they haven't seen that, well, that's, that's a total new paradigm shift in their life.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be a little tough to shift on that part. But like you said, I mean, when you see that, and I mean, people are gonna hear this and they're gonna get super excited. So that's where what we need to find that fire that we can light under everybody, and just really get them going and really excited about it. So I want to make sure you have some time to make sure that when they do come to your schools, to your institute and your college, um, obviously there's those standards, there's those expectations. But at the end, how long is a program and what do they get at the end?
Right. Our programs mainly are 9 months or less, and it depends on what they're taking. But they'll receive certifications, say in welding. There will be some certifications in HVAC and electrical. But what they're really getting in all of our programs is our commitment to working with them to get a job in their related field. Right. That's really the end goal. We have, and again, you'll hear at our place, I always say job placement is king. I actually say job placement is the main pillar of our success. And we like to say, so it's not a pillar, it's the main pillar. So in all of our institutions, we're working with employers and we're working to get our students jobs. And that's what we want to do. We can't promise anybody a job because you never know what's going to happen, but we're going to work with them to do it. And to show our commitment in that, all of our job placement statistics are third party verified. So it's not just us. So we get, and it's very labor intensive on our end to do that, because to get a third party agency connected with the employer and the student and get them to answer the phone, and they both have to sign off that he started on this date and they paid this wage. So we've put a lot of work in it. But when anyone looks at our stats, if it says 71%, it's 71%. If it says 83, it's 83. If it says 92, it's gold, whatever that is, that's what it is. So when they come in, the parents and the students alike can see, okay, I'm getting in a program where at least 7 out of 10 got jobs. This program here, 8 out of 10 got jobs. So they can get their mind around that, hey, I can be successful like that. So, we really are just pushing that message. And like I said, kind of from the beginning, we found from experience that it works. This is, it's, our own little world's the MTI world. We've had our 35,000 graduates, and these are the lives we've affected with their families. But I can assure you it's because they had success getting when they got out of school. Right. They actually had a job waiting for them, and they went out and they told their friends, hey, go to that school and they'll help you out. And that's all we can ask for.
Yeah, no,
Absolutely.
that's huge. No, I mean, just a testament to the 35,000. And I mean, just knowing with how many campuses you have and knowing the need behind it also, where this is, it's only almost inevitable. It's just going to continue to keep growing and the word is going to get out there to everybody. So, I mean, it's not just anybody outside of high school. I imagine there's a lot of veterans that are coming out of military with already skills in their pocket that they can come over and possibly use some GI, some veteran benefits towards this school. Is that right?
Yes, it is. And we have many veterans that come. Yeah, and really our wheelhouse for age is about 22 to 27. We've had people in their 50s and 60s, but the brunt of who comes in there is about 22 to 27. We always tell people they show up on our doorstep when they want to go to work. They've been knocking around for a while. They've tried this, they've tried that, and they usually end up with us when it's time to just learn something and go to work. But yeah, we do have them come right out of high school. We have all ranges. But yeah, of course, we have the GI Bill. We have vets come, and we found a lot of vets don't want to go necessarily take 4 years. Now they got that option, but if you can get into a career with us 9 months or less, truck driving's even shorter, but they don't, they're coming to school and they're going to work in a very short time frame.
Fantastic.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
I think
go
we
ahead,
got to
Jeff.
have him back on, Danny, because I got a lot more questions.
Me too. Yeah, we too. Yeah, not only that, but just to one for everybody that's listening. I mean, it's simple. Go ahead and just reach out to them and look at their websites. It'll have all the information you need. And I think one key thing would be to ask you, Brian, would be you kind of had a little message earlier, but there's a lot of parents out there that still need to be educated a little, understand a little bit more about the trades and just like the opportunity in there. In a quick moment, what would you say to those parents and kids?
Well, I would say that that's the bright side, if there is such a thing, of the skills gap, because the other side of the coin is there's great opportunity. There's, if whatever the trade is, if they pick that and stick with it, they're going to have lifetime work, and it pays well. You look at the pay for electricians, the pay for welders, the pay for HVAC techs. Matter of fact, they just showed that it's new construction new hires actually outpaced professional services, including accounting, by $9,000 starting wage. So that's over the last 4 years. So the trades really pay well. They've got good benefits, and we believe they're very replacement resistant to AI. And when you break it down, everything begins with the trades. There's a lot of good things to say to learn about that. So I would say you're making a great decision. You're not going to be sorry you did it. And the other thing about it is it's something you can do the rest of your life. We tell people, go out and weld for 5 years, and if you want to take money you saved up and start building rental houses, or maybe you want to invest in real estate or something like that, you can get a second job. You can do something, but you'll always have that trade in your back pocket. Nobody can ever take that from you. You can go out and do whatever you want after that. So there's not a downside to getting into the trades, and the cost to getting into the trades is so effective. Like for us, our average student loan debt's $9,000 or $10,000. That's $30,000 to $40,000, and that's being kind, less than what traditional college is. We all know what that can cost. Trade schools like ours, and the trades in general, you can get into them, at a much lower cost than college, and your return on investment could be very significant for you. So I would say follow through with it, and as I mentioned earlier, be a good worker. That's
Right.
that's uno. If you're a good worker, that cures all sins, right?
Absolutely.
That makes up for a whole lot of shortcomings when you're a good worker. So you can definitely write your ticket if you're a good worker. But
That's
Absolutely.
amazing.
yeah,
Yeah. That's great. Brian, thank you again. Everybody, this is Trades Podcast. Brian with MidwestTech.edu, and check out Delta Technical College as well, deltatechnicalcollege.com. All that information is going to be put out there for you guys to check out. But Brian, yeah, couldn't thank you enough to, one, shine the light of your institutes and your college, and just your mission, and just how excited you are behind it, because when people speak to you, it almost be like a no-brainer of moving forward with going into your program. So thanks again, and we hope that everybody loves this. So please, reach out to Brian and his whole team, because they're there to help you.
well, I really appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot.